Ever been barred from your own family land by strangers in cheap uniforms while a smiling woman tells you it's for the community's protection? What if that same polished HOA president claimed your dying grandfather owed $47,000 he never once mentioned in his shaky last letters? And how does it feel when every official document suddenly carries a forged signature from a man too sick with Parkinson's to hold a pen straight? I just drove 6 straight hours from Chicago through the frozen Nebraska flats, heart still raw from burying Grandpa Henry, only to find my inheritance turned into a private fortress. 2 meatheads in black polo shirts crossed their arms at the gate like they were Secret Service. Behind them stepped out Karen Whitaker herself, president of Meadowbrook Acres HOA, blonde helmet hair frozen in place, designer coat flapping in the wind, thick folder in her manicured hands like it was the holy grail of petty tyranny. "Sir, you are not permitted to enter this area," she said in that syrupy voice they teach at Karen's school. "This property is under HOA protective management until the debt is settled. Your grandfather owed us $47,217. Bless his heart, he just couldn't keep up with the standards anymore." Standards. The same woman who once fined Mrs. Jenkins $300 for her Christmas lights being too festive and lowering property values was now stealing 3 generations of Harlan family soil. I didn't shake her outstretched hand. In white farmhouse I learned to drive a tractor on when I was 8. The chain around the gate was new. The padlock was new. Circus was brand new since Grandpa died 3 months ago. Karen opened her folder with a flourish and recited the numbers like she'd practiced in the mirror. Unpaid assessments. Maintenance violations. Until this balance is cleared, the farm remains under our care, for the good of the entire community, of course. She smiled the way a shark smiles at a bleeding swimmer. I asked to see the paperwork. Long enough for me to notice, then handed over a few sheets. Assessment notices. Violation reports claiming the old tractor was an eyesore and the barn roof endangered neighborhood aesthetics. And at the bottom, a voluntary property management agreement with Grandpa's signature. Except it wasn't his. Handwriting my whole life. Birthday cards, letters when I was overseas, the deed he showed me at 12 promising this land would always be ours. Parkinson's had turned his hand into a trembling mess for 8 years. This signature was smooth, confident, perfect loops like a calligraphy pro. Either Grandpa had a miracle recovery right before he died, or Karen Whitaker had forged it. I didn't say a word. Supposedly signed. "About 14 months ago," she chirped. "Your grandfather recognized he could no longer maintain the standards and voluntarily entered this arrangement. 14 months ago, Grandpa could barely hold a coffee cup without spilling half of it." Karen's smile never wavered, but her eyes flicked, just once, to the guards. That tiny crack told me everything. Leaving city boyhood fold, sign whatever she shoved in front of me, and slink back to Chicago broken. That assumption was her first mistake, as long as it took. I told her I needed time to review. Business card, her legal representative, and clicked back to her silver Lexus in heels that looked ridiculous on frozen dirt. The guards didn't budge. I drove 15 miles to the cheapest motel, sat in the room with the heater rattling, and stared at the documents until my eyes burned. Here's the thing about HOAs nobody tells you until it's too late. They love to preach community standards, while quietly rewriting the rules to suit whoever's in charge. They can fine you for grass too long or too short. They can slap liens, pivot muscle to physically block an owner from their own land. They cannot manage a property without a court order or a properly recorded agreement. And they sure as hell cannot forge a dying man's signature and expect it to hold up. What Karen Whitaker was doing wasn't enforcement. It was organized theft wearing a pastel cardigan and calling itself protective management. That night, I photographed every page, zoomed in on the impossible signature, and started a folder on my laptop labeled Meadowbrook Mess. I didn't flash any credentials. Ryan Harlan, marketing consultant, quiet grandson who abandoned his sick grandpa, according to the rumors Karen was already spreading, was going to play dumb and watch her unravel. Monday morning, I was first in line at the Madison County Recorder's office. The clerk pulled up the parcel. No lien filed for the supposed 47 grand debt. Not a single one. Karen waved around. Never recorded. It existed only in her folder where she controlled the narrative. But property taxes? Paid for the last 18 months by an entity called Heartland Legacy LLC, some shell company I'd never heard of. Someone was paying the bills on land they didn't legally own. Someone was positioning to steal it clean. That afternoon, I parked down the county road and watched through binoculars. The guards were gone, but a truck I didn't recognize sat by the barn. Two men loading Grandpa's 1992 tractor, the one he rebuilt with his own hands. They were stealing it in broad daylight. My first instinct was to storm over, but I stopped. Confrontation now would tip her off. I photographed the plates, the faces, the truck, and let them drive away. Evidence over emotion. Back at the motel, my phone buzzed. Who'd lived next door 40 years. She'd heard I was in town. They did the same to your grandpa they did to 3 other families, she whispered. Same fake notices, same forged papers, same lawyer who isn't really a lawyer. They're picking off the old folks whose kids live far away. She had a shoebox of documents, identical forgeries, same notary stamp from a woman whose commission had expired years ago. The pattern was crystal clear. Forged management agreement. Shell company paying taxes. Karen Whitaker wasn't just a power-tripping HOA president. She was running a farm-stealing factory dressed up as community standards, and she was terrified of losing her throne. Tuesday, everything accelerated. Door at dawn. Victor Lang threatening restraining orders if I didn't stop harassing HOA staff. By lunch, the sheriff showed up with a courtesy visit because Karen filed a complaint claiming I was trespassing. By 5, the motel manager canceled my reservation after a mysterious call from corporate about ongoing litigation. 3 strikes in one day. Legal fear, police pressure, homelessness. Most people would have packed up and run. But I wasn't most people. Corporations spin lies for profit. I knew how to wait. I moved to the next town, checked in under a different name, and kept building. Martha introduced me to Benjamin White, whose dad lost his farm 2 years ago under the exact same template. Bank statements showed the sale money wired straight to the Holloway Family Trust, Karen's trust. The money trail was the smoking gun. Funneled everything to her. 7 properties across 2 states. All elderly owners. 2 sick or died. Karen had turned protecting property values into a literal business of stealing them. Wednesday, the diner in town went silent when I walked in. Whispers followed me. That's the grandson who left Henry to rot. Karen had poisoned the well beautifully. I sat there eating cold eggs while the woman who forged signatures and hired muscle played the victim on every front porch. The anger burned, but I smiled politely. Let them underestimate me. By Thursday, I had 143 documents, timelines, wire transfers, and expired notary proof. Karen thought she was untouchable in her little kingdom. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Friday, I made the call. Office and used my best tired, defeated voice. I've thought about it. Me. I just want this over. She practically purred. Situations are always so difficult for families. Why don't we meet Monday at the community center? I'm sure we can find a resolution that works for everyone. Translation: sign away the farm for pennies and disappear. I agreed. Everything to a real attorney in Omaha and arranged for 2 county deputies to wait outside with body cams rolling. No badge flashing. In preparation, the same way I'd watched her operate. Sunday night, I drove past the farm one last time. The chain still gleamed under the moonlight. The farmhouse sat dark and silent. I thought of Grandpa's last letter. They're trying to take it, Ryan. Don't let them. I whispered back to the wind. I won't. Monday, 10 a.m. Community center smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Karen sat at the head of the table, Victor Lang on her left, Derek Vance, the ex-con security thug, on her right. She slid the settlement folder across like it was a gift. Sign the quitclaim. We forgive the debt. You walk with $10,000. Clean. I flipped through slowly. $100,000 farm. Buried on page 19, the clause admitting the transfer was voluntary, with advice to seek counsel. Classic cover-your-ass move. I looked up and smiled. I'm handing over my family's legacy for pocket change while your shell company has been paying the taxes and your fake notary stamped every forgery. Her smile froze, muttering about misunderstandings. Derek shifted like he wanted to throw me out. I kept going, voice calm. Notary commission expired 4 years ago. Every document is invalid. The tax payments trace straight to your family trust. 7 farms. All elderly. Exact same way. I slid my phone across the table, recording app open, timestamped, backed up to the cloud. This conversation is being recorded. Deputies outside have copies of everything. You're done. The door opened. Stepped in. Karen's perfect facade cracked wide open. You can't do this. I was protecting property values. The community needs me. Her voice climbed into full Karen screech. High, entitled, ridiculous. The woman who once fined a veteran for flying an American flag too large was now screaming about standards while handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Victor demanded a lawyer he wasn't licensed to be. Derek just stared at the floor, all muscle gone soft. Word spread faster than Nebraska wind. By the time they loaded Karen into the cruiser, a small crowd had gathered. Neighbors who'd lived in fear of her fines and notices for years. Martha Jennings cried quietly. The first real smile I'd seen on his face in 2 years. 6 months later in federal court, Karen Whitaker stood in an orange jumpsuit instead of designer blazer, highlights faded, entitlement finally gone. Wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy, elder exploitation. The judge didn't mince words. You turned a position of trust into a criminal enterprise targeting the vulnerable. 9 years. Full restitution. $47,000 clawed back to the victims. The shell company's dissolved. Grandpa's tractor sits in the barn again. The gate chain is gone, replaced by a simple wooden sign I carved myself. Harlan Farm. Karen's community standards empire collapsed the second real scrutiny hit it. Turns out when the HOA queen loses her fake crown, the whole kingdom crumbles in the most satisfying way possible. Here's the quiet truth nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs. HOAs aren't inherently evil, but give a Karen unlimited power and zero oversight, and she'll turn protecting the neighborhood into a license to steal your legacy. Document everything, question every signature, and never assume the smiling president has your best interests at heart. Fight smart, stay patient, and when the scam finally explodes, damn, it feels good to watch.